This is the message for July 6. It's found in 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 1 through 14. Now Naaman was commander of the army of the king of Aram. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded because through him the Lord had given victory to Aram. He was a valiant soldier, but he had leprosy. Now bands from Aram had gone out and had taken captive a young girl from Israel, and she served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy." Naaman went to his master and told him what the girl from Israel had said. "By all means go," the king of Aram replied. "I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. The letter that he took to the king of Israel read, "With this letter I am sending my servant Naaman to you, so that you may cure him of his leprosy." As soon as the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his robes and he said, "Am I God? Can I kill and bring back to life? Why does this fellow send someone to me to be cured of his leprosy? See how he is trying to pick a quarrel with me?" When Elijah, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes, he sent him this message: "Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and stopped at the door of Elijah's house. Elijah sent a messenger to say to him, "Go, wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed." But Naaman went away angry and said, "I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord, wave his hand over the spot, and cure me of my leprosy. Are not Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than any of the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be cleansed?" So he turned and he went off in a rage. Naaman's servant went to him and said, "My father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you, 'Wash and be cleaned'?" So he went down and he dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God had told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. This is the word of God for the people of God. Today's message is called "Just Go Straight There." When I was in junior high school, my Uncle Randy and I were leaving for church one Wednesday night. It was probably only a mile or less up the Juliet Road from my grandparents' house, up to the top of the hill where Maynard Baptist Church was located. Well, instead of making the journey up the road, we decided to cross the road and go into the woods. So off we went up the red clay bank, through the pines, and then turned right on a power line. Now at this point, we're kind of in new territory for us. We could walk every inch of the woods to the left, even blindfolded. We were there all the time. We knew that territory well, but not so much to the right. There were briars and at least one barbed wire fence, and it was getting dark. We came out at a chicken farm owned by people that we really didn't know that well. We arrived at church drenched in sweat, only in time to hear the last hymn of the service. Fortunately, someone had pity on us and gave us a ride home. Now, I'm not sure if this story reflects more on our intelligence or ability to tell time or just two boys' quest for adventure, but I am certain that we would have been on time for church if we had just gone straight there. Which leads us to a wonderful narrative in 2 Kings. The story is loaded with characters of significance. but only two of them are named. Naaman, a very high regarded officer in command of the army of Aram, which is actually what we would call Syria today. And the other named person is the prophet Elisha. As the commander of the armies of Aram, Naaman has been very successful in invading Israel. The armies of Aram have been on raiding parties and have captured people as slaves. One such slave girl was taken and given to Naaman's wife to work in their home. Naaman had a problem. He had leprosy. At the time, leprosy was a catch-all for many different types of skin ailments, such as psoriasis and even more serious conditions like elephantitis and leprosy. He was a man of importance. He almost had it all, but he was trapped by a debilitating disease, which I'm sure many people just did not want to be around him. Now, this unnamed slave girl offers an important suggestion to Naaman's wife. If the master would go to see the prophet in Samaria, he will be healed. So Naaman goes to see his king, and the king enthusiastically agrees to send the king of Israel a letter. This starts to look more like a diplomatic mission, with tremendous gifts being sent to a king that you know that he's been very successful in defeating in battle. Some scholars estimate that the gift is worth as much as $1 million. This seems a little upscale, or a little upside down, considering that the victor is actually sending gifts to the defeated foe. But that's just how much the king of Aram valued his army commander. The king of Israel doesn't take this visit and letter very well at all. He thinks that he's being set up by the king of Aram, possibly resulting in another invasion. However, he knows there is nothing he can do to change the circumstances that he's in. In frustration, the king tears his robe. Elijah hears what has happened and requests that the king send the man to him. So Naaman and his large entourage arrives outside of Elijah's house. Elijah didn't even go out to meet Naaman. Instead, he sends a messenger out with the instructions. Go to the Jordan River and wash 7 times, and your flesh will be restored. But Naaman wasn't having it. Naaman got angry and stormed off, and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God. Are not the Abana and the Pharpar rivers of Damascus better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I wash in them and be clean? Somehow something went wrong in this plan. A king sent his great general on a journey to another king with a great sum of gifts to reward the person responsible for the healing. But something broke down. This was not a diplomatic mission among nations. This was not quid pro quo. This was a voice of a teenage slave girl saying, there is a prophet in Samaria that can heal you. And she trusted the process, and so the high-ranking general in a highly tense nationalistic time is on his way, but he goes to see the king of Israel. The king is playing by a different set of rules. Nationalism, wealth, pride, diplomacy, these aren't the rules of God. The rules of God say, love your neighbor and love your enemy and be kind to strangers. Well, Elijah may not have extended hospitality, but he did extend healing. He said, "Go and wash in the river 7 times. Go wash in the Jordan River 7 times." And he did this through a messenger. As we said last week in my story about my daughter Jordan, when she was just a small child, she told her mom that she was ready to go because the preacher had insulted her name by calling the Jordan a dirty little river. But it's not about the river. It's really not. It's not about the river. It's about listening and following and being obedient. Once again, we need to hear from the servants to find the truth. They said, "If the prophet had told you to do some great thing, wouldn't you have done it? How much more then when he tells you, wash and be cleansed?" So finally, Naaman went down to the Jordan River and he dipped himself in the Jordan, not once, not twice, not even 5 times, 7 times. He did it no matter how silly it might have looked. He was obedient. He did what the man of God had told him. 7 times he went in and his flesh was restored and he became clean. You might be surprised to know that Naaman is not only mentioned in 2 Kings, but he's also in the Gospel of Luke in chapter 4, verses 27 and 28. Jesus talks about him. Jesus says, while he was in Nazareth, there were many in Israel with leprosy in the time of Elisha the prophet, yet not one of them was cleansed, only Naaman the Syrian. What is it that Jesus was trying to say then? He's trying to say that God's mercy and grace extends to all, even the enemies of Israel. Over and over again, Jesus will make this point with Gentiles, with Samaritans, and even Roman officers. Your enemy is never God's enemy because we can't dictate to God what we think and believe. And Naaman, a foreigner, a general responsible for pain and suffering in Israel, got out of the way of himself. He got out of his own way. He heard the servants. He heard now the prophet through the servant. And he allowed God to work, and he experienced a miracle. How often do we stand in our own way of missing what God has for us? I just finished a book by Brian Zahnd. It's called Water to Wine, and in it he talks about the English writer George MacDonald, who wrote a novel called Lilith. He says there's a scene that he often thinks about. The bird-like guide, Mr. Raven, is seeking to lead Mr. Vane on the journey he needs to take, a journey of suffering and salvation. So Mr. Raven says, "This is the way." Mr. Vane stubbornly replies, "I am quite content where I am." The wise Mr. Raymond retorts, "You think so, but you are not. Come along." And a piece that I often read on my email is called Journey with Jesus. In this, on this passage, he talks about Richard Rohr, the writer, the Catholic priest, who wrote in his book, The Universal Christ, that there are only 2 things that compel us towards spiritual growth: love and suffering. These are the primary tools of our transformation. And transformation is not found in self-development or self-improvement, but in unlearning and undoing and letting go and surrendering. Naaman had to let go of pride, status, privilege, and a whole lot more. For Naaman, He had to let go and let God. And then he could realize God's blessing. He had to be willing to hear the message secondhand through the servant of God, the prophet Elisha. Just like Randy and I so long ago on a Middle Georgia Wednesday night went off and took a different direction, we would have benefited by going straight there. But so often that's not how life goes. We take detours, and sometimes we can miss it if we're not careful. Once Jordan and I were running on a beautiful trail, and our conversation turned to Paul Simon, the songwriter and musician, his song Graceland. We talked about how the song's lyrics had such strong spiritual meaning. Here they are. I'm going to Graceland, poor boys and pilgrims with families, and we are going to Graceland. And my traveling companions are ghosts and empty sockets. I'm looking at ghosts and empty sockets. I'm looking at ghosts and empties. But I've a reason to believe we all will be received in Graceland. My commission for all of us is to go straight there. Go straight there and experience God's grace for you. And so here are the words of the benediction today. They're a little bit longer. I'm reading from the Living Bible. This is from Psalm 25, verses 4 through 10. Show us the path where we should go, O Lord. Point out the right road for us to walk. Lead us, teach us, for you are the God who gives us salvation. We have no hope except in you. Overlook our youthful sins, O Lord. Look at us instead through eyes of mercy and forgiveness, through eyes of everlasting love and kindness. The Lord is good and glad to teach the proper path to all who go astray. He will teach the ways that are right and best to those who humbly turn to Him. And when we obey Him, every path He guides us on is fragrant with His loving kindness and His truth. I hope these words of encouragement to go straight there will be with you and last through this next week and days to come. And now as we go, I want to just say, I hope to see you here again in the mountains next week.